an idea. We'll be working with multiple databases, and we're going to be using 4 different idea tags to see how we can work with multiple databases. My name is Hope from Pierre Consulting, CaseWare Idea. So today I'm walking you through how to work with multiple databases, and we'll be using 4 different idea tags in saying how we can work with different databases. So before we start, I'll have to turn off my video so I can share my screen for you to see my screen. So please confirm you can see my screen. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we're working, like I said, we're working with multiple databases, and the first idea tag we'll be looking at is append database. The append database allows you to append multiple databases into a single database for testing. You can append up to 2,768 databases in the order they are selected into a single database. For example, you can append database up to 12 months, like a payroll transaction. You can append January, February, March, April, May to December into a single transactions for the year. And then after appending, you can further go ahead and check and summarize the database by employee to produce a year-to-year dates, gross, net, tax, and deductions figures. Now, for the append, there are restrictions to the append. When you append databases, you cannot append a database that contains one or more fields with the same name but different types. What I mean is this: they can have the same name and they're different, and their data types are different. You will not be able to append it. So what you need to do is you have to change the data type to be the same. You cannot append a database of a numeric field type and another database of a character field type. It's either you change it to a character field type or you change it to a numeric field type. You cannot use the same database more than once. You use it the first time, you cannot use it again the second time. Databases from different locations cannot be appended together. You cannot append a database in an inventory project and try appending another database from a stock project. It will not be able to append. So they all have to be in the same location or in the same project. That's for append. You can append as many databases together, and it will be appended in the order it is selected. So I'll move to the software. Let's see how append works. So this is the idea software, and we are going to be importing 2 different files. The first file we'll be appending is a January 2020 purchases file. So I already have my file in the library. The file I'm importing is an access file. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sadiq. So at this point, I'm going to rename this file January 2020. So I have successfully imported my January 2020 purchases. I'm going to import back. So I'll be going through the library, my source file, and February purchases so at this point, I'm changing the name to reflect February 20 say okay. So at this point, I want to append these two databases together. So in that, I'll go to analysis. Under the relate group, I'll select. So I'm making my January the active database. Now select append. So at this point, we have the name, the file name. I'm going to change the file name. January and February purchases. Remember, my January is the active database, so I'm bringing the February to the other side for me to append to it. Peradventure, you have as many files as possible. You have like 12-month salary file. You see the 12-month salary file listed there, and then move them to the other side where you want it to be appended. And then I click on OK. I have successfully appended my files together. And remember, I said appended in the order you selected it. So the January is above, the February is below. And it appends it in stack form, in row wise form. Can you see my screen? So now that we are done with the append, let's go back. Let's go to the join. Remember, we are using all tags. We're going to work with.
Hello? Good morning, sir. Well done, sir. Please email
Database. This can be used to combine field from two databases into a single database for testing. And it also tests for data that matches and do not match across databases or systems. Now, the join database also has restrictions. You can join and match database only if they contain one or more common fields, like a matching key, such as the employee number. The match key do not need to have the same name or length, but they must be of the same identical field type. If they're not of the same field type, it is best you change them so they reflect the same field type. You can only join two databases at one time. So if you have more than two databases you would like to join, you first join two and then join it with the third. Join the third to the resultant database. Idea join database joins the secondary database to the primary database. So make sure you join in the order you want it to be. And again, the database must be in the same location. A database in the payroll project cannot be joined to a database in another project. And join also gives us 5 different options. We have the matches only, we have records with no secondary match, we have records with no primary match, we have all records in primary file, and we have all records in both files. So I'll move to the software and I'll show you how the join database works. So please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes.
So we are going to be joining a database called supplier details file to the January and February purchases. Remember I said if you have 3 databases you want to join together, you first join 2 and add a third to the resultant database. So our resultant database is the January and February purchases. I'll be joining our suppliers details file to it. So I'll go ahead and import our suppliers detail file. Next. Please, are you seeing my idea window? Please confirm you can see my idea screen. I've minimized. I've minimized. Okay. So let's continue. Sorry for the pitch in the network. So at this point, I'm going to rename this field. I'll call this suppliers number. Number info. So this is suppliers number, suppliers number info, I'll go over to the second column, suppliers name, suppliers name info, and the last column is the supplier country. So after naming the fields, I click on next. I am not adding any new field here, but peradventure you have any field you need to include to the database you want to import, you can go ahead, but we're not adding any field. I click on next, next, and then finish. I have brought in my suppliers details file. I'll be joining into the resultant database of the January and February purchases. So under the analysis tab, I'll go to the relate group and click join. At this point, I'll be selecting my secondary database. And my secondary database is the supplier's detail file I just imported. I'll click on it. We need a match key. We need a common key between these two databases. And the common key is supplier number, supplier number. Now remember I said there are restrictions when using join. They have to be of the same data type. And if you look at my screen, the supplier number in the secondary database is numeric, while the supplier number in the primary database is character. We can't go ahead of this join, so we'll have to rename it or we change the field type to reflect the same. So I'm going to close this, go to the supplier's details and change this so I'll change this to character. And then go back to my join. Join. Select my secondary database with the supplier's details file. Select my match key. Now if you notice, they are both of the same data type. Click on OK. The file name will be purchases with details. Remember the 5 join options I talked about? Here they are. We have matches only. It outputs only those records with matches in both databases. We have all records in primary file. It gives you output databases in the primary file alone. We have records with no secondary match. It extracts records that do not have any secondary match. We have records in both files and we have records with no primary file. But for this join, we're going to be using all records in primary file. So I click on OK. So this is my result. So if I scroll to the end, I get to see all that information that was added to the resultant database. I have my supplier number, I have my supplier name, and my supplier country from the supplier details file that was added to the January and February purchases. And if you look at the result, record number 11 does not have a supplier name, does not have a supplier country, does not have a supplier number. But there are purchases for both January and February. So if you want to see this result, let me extract this. So we just have one person. The supplier number, the product, the quantity, the amount, but there was no supplier number, there was no supplier name, and there was no supplier country. So how was this purchase made? So it jumpstarts us thinking. We can now probe further to find out how this purchase was made without the supplier name, without the supplier country, and the supplier number. So I'm going to clear this criteria. Please confirm you can see my screen. Please, can you see my screen? Thank you. So we're going to go to the third part, which is the compare databases. The compare database allows you to identify differences in a single numeric field in two databases in the project and for a specific common match key. Now, the general use of this database, compare database, is to compare the same database at 2 points in time, such as the payroll at the beginning and at the end of the month, to identify changes in the salary for each employee. Now, the employee ID in this case will be the match key. We can also use it to compare numeric fields from different databases, providing the match key is the same, such as quantity of inventory on the inventory master database versus the quantity of inventory on the stock take database, where the match key is the item number. Now, the match key in the inventory and the match key in the stock take database will be the same for you to be able to draw about your compare. Neither the match key fields nor the fields for comparison needs to be the same name in the two databases, but the match key must be the same. So if it's not the same, please go ahead and change like I did when we're joining those two databases together. The compare database compares the total of the numeric field in each database. In addition to determining the differences in the numeric field in the match key, it also identifies how many records we have for each database for each unique match key field. So let's go back to the idea software. We are going to be performing a compare task now. But before I do that, I need to import two databases I'll be using for this compare task. So I'll go to my library. I'm importing ED purchase all form. I click on import. Now if you look at my screen, it has two sheets in this workbook. So if you have as many sheets as possible, you can import those sheets that are relevant to you. But I'm importing just two sheets, 2010 and 2011. This is just the preview of how the database looks like before it comes into ID, and then I click on OK. So let me close up this file. I'm done with this one. Now if you look at my file explorer, I have two of these files imported. I have 2010 and 2011. We want to compare these two databases together. But before we go ahead, if you look at this file, we have both January gross, February gross, March, April gross to December. So I'm going to append a new field in this database. This is the appended field I'm going to use in comparing the two databases together. Please go along with me. I'll be appending a new field called total gross. The name of the field will be called total gross. It's a virtual numeric field, 2 decimal points, and then I'm going to add the parameter. So once I click on this icon that looks like a calculator, it brings me to the equation editor window. And at this point, I'll start fixing in my equation. I want to add January to December to give me the total gross for year 2010. So I'm adding up January plus, select your operator, plus February, plus March, plus April, plus May, plus June, plus July, plus August, plus September, plus October plus November and plus December. So let's confirm if our equation is correct. I'm clicking on this small check mark. It says my equation is valid. But before I go ahead, I want to copy out this equation because I'm going to be needing it in the 2011 database. So I validate. You can also add the description for that field. I click on OK. So that field has been created for me. If you look towards the end, you see our total gross field created for us. So let's do this in the 2010 database. I'll add a new field called total gross. The virtual numeric field with 2 decimal points. I don't need to type my January to December equation anymore. I'll just paste because I copied it from the first database I created. I'll say OK. The same field has been created. So let's go ahead and compare the databases together. So I'm making my 2011 the active database. I'll go to Analysis tab. Under the Relate group, click on Select, Compare rather. The field I'm using for my compare will be the new field I just created, which is the total gross. I'll go ahead and select my secondary database, which is the ED Purchases L4 2010. So I'm going to name this field, this database, Purchases 2011. The match key, sorry, we have to select a match key. The match key we are selecting is supplier's number. So this is the database will be called Purchases 2011. The total field we'll be using for the secondary database is the total gross, just like the primary. So this will be called Purchases 2011 versus 2010 or 4. Now click on OK. This is our result. So we have our supplier's number. We have the PN records, means primary number of records. We have the primary total, which is the 2011 database. We have the secondary number of records, and we have the secondary total and the differences. So for record 1, they had purchases of 95,000 compared to secondary, and we have a difference for the first record. And in some cases, there were no purchases in 2011, but there were purchases in 2010. And we can see our differences. We can choose to extract this record, or we can choose to leave it here. So if the January to December salary for each month or for each year were imported and then compared, you would have seen the differences for each year for each employee. Please confirm you can still see my screen. confirm if you can still see my screen. So the last task will be looking at is the visual connector. The visual connector allows you to generate a single database from several other databases that share the same or common key fields. When the dialog box opens, the current active database becomes the primary database, and it is automatically added to the canvas. I'll be showing you how the canvas looks like. And then it creates a visual connection between the databases. And you can add and you can connect more databases that contains matching records. The databases must be the same project. The relationship that the visual connector creates between the database is one-to-many, meaning that primary database can have several matches in the connected database. All records in the connected database that match records in the primary database are included in the output database. So let's see how this works. So I'll close off all of this stuff. So I'll open up purchases 2011 versus 2010 healthcare. Under the Relate group, I'll select Visual Connector. This is our Visual Connector window. This is the canvas. So the one we made the active is now the primary database, as we can see on the screen. So I'll be selecting ED suppliers. Before we continue, let me quickly import our ED suppliers L4. I've imported our ED supplier. So let me go back to the analysis tab under the Relate group. I'll select Visual Connector. I am bringing in the ED. I'll be selecting the ED suppliers L4. Now remember I said there has to be a matching key between the two databases. So we have the supplier number in the primary, we have the supplier number in the secondary. So we are going to be connecting these two together. Let me repeat this. I'll drag the supplier number in the primary database and drop it on the supplier in the secondary database. So there's a connection between these two databases using the supplier number. At this point, we can choose to leave the number of fields we can see here, or we can select the ones we want. So at this point, I'll be deselecting the comment. I don't need the comment. So I'll start selecting the ones I want. Supplier number, supplier name, supplier country. So I'll leave others the way they are. I'll click on OK. At this point, we have matches only, so we'll leave it by default, matches only, and give it a name, purchases with suppliers info. If I click on OK, with the visual connector, you can join more than 3 databases together. At this point, you're able to join 3. Yes, we have 2 files joined together that give us the local database with purchases 2011 and 2010. And then we are connected to Google suppliers also. So we can do the same and have as many databases together as much as possible. On the account that we have the same matching field at this point, I'll click on OK. I have my purchases 2010 and 2011 with my suppliers info together. Please confirm you can see my screen. Do you have any questions to ask? And I hope you're able to understand the 4 different tags we can use in working with multiple databases. Any questions, please? Sorry, for those of us who didn't join when we started. For those of us who joined late, you can visit our social media handles to watch more of these videos, and our handles will be dropped shortly, so you can visit and watch them. So let me drop the social media handles for you. Just hold while we drop the social media handle. So our social media handles has been dropped, so please feel free to visit any of them for more videos. I want to say a big thank you for taking out time to join us. We'll be hosting another webinar come next month, and you guys to join us. Thank you very much. So the recordings will be sent across. Okay. Thank you once again for joining us in this webinar. Thank you for taking out time to join us. We'll be hosting another one coming next month, and we'll send invites to everyone of us. Thank you very much for your time.